Hi there, and thanks for checking out this video. I'm John from TennisCompanion, and today we're doing an in-depth review and playtest of the Yonex EZONE 98. Before we get started, I did want to let you know that this is not a sponsored video. I haven't been paid by Yonex or anyone else to discuss this racket. With that said, let's get started with the EZONE 98 specs so you know exactly what you're getting with this racket. The EZONE series originally launched in 2010, which makes the 2020 release of this frame its 6th generation, and part of a line of rackets made increasingly popular with endorsements from players like Kyrios and Naomi Osaka. Overall, the racket's specs make for what many refer to as a modern player's racket, which seeks to strike a balance between power and control with moderate comfort. First up, the EZONE 98 comes in your standard length of 27 inches, with a slightly smaller, more control-oriented head size of 98 square inches and a 16x19 string pattern. The racket's unstrung weight falls at a maneuverable 10.8 ounces or 305 grams. Yonex typically has excellent quality control, and the racket I have on hand weighs 10.69 ounces or 303 grams, for a slight yet respectable variation. For the strung weight, you can add 18 or so grams. You'll also find its swing weight comes in at 317. The EZONE 98 offers a 9-point headlight balance at 31.5 centimeters unstrung, which drops to 6 points headlight at 32.4 centimeters with strings installed. As for its stiffness, the EZONE 98 has a relatively arm-friendly RA rating of 64. Last but not least, the racket has a variable width beam that's 19mm at the throat, 24mm at 3 and 9 o'clock on the racket's head, and 23mm at the top. As usual, if you're looking to dive deeper on any of these specs, I'd encourage you to check out my guides on these topics, which I've linked in the video's description. The latest generation of the EZONE 98 offers a few familiar technologies, while introducing a handful of noteworthy new features. However, before we jump in, keep in mind that while it's useful to learn about the intentions behind the tech, what really matters is how a racket feels. So I'd encourage you to try or demo the racket before buying if possible to form your own opinions. For starters, the racket features the brand's distinct isometric or square-shaped head design, which according to Yonex helps increase the size of the sweet spot by 7% compared to your standard round frame design. Next up, the racket now offers a linear tech grommet system, which pairs nicely with the isometric head shape by drilling many of the grommets straight through the frame instead of on an angle to improve power and comfort. For reference, this is the same concept that Wilson uses, but they brand it as parallel drilling. This generation of the racket also integrates shockless grommets at the sides and bottom of the head, with the goal of reducing shock and improving feel. In the racket's throat, you'll find the frame now integrates a new age carbon fiber called M40X, which exists to strike a balance between stability and flex for controllable power. Along with M40X in the throat, the frame maintains its oval press shaft, which rounds the corners of this section of the frame for optimal flex and increased dwell time, intended to improve control and enhance spin. Last but not least, the 2020 version of the EZONE 98 also features an updated dampening mesh that wraps the graphite in the handle to reduce vibration and improve comfort and feel. Overall, I like the updated cosmetic of the EZONE 98. They leaned in on the blue theme, so instead of black and blue from the previous model, you'll find different shades of blue throughout, with a bit of shimmer if you look closely. They also introduced a few subtle orange details and maintained the silver highlight for the logos. I'm not the biggest fan of the Transformer-esque geometric shapes, but it doesn't look bad and it's a clean, low-key design that works for me. If you're interested in this racket but looking for a dramatically different design, you might want to check out Naomi Osaka's limited edition white and gold version, which was released not too long ago on September 17th. The recommended tension range for the Yonex EZONE 98 is 45 to 60 pounds. For my playtest, I strung with 1.25mm Polytour Pro at 52 pounds or 23.6 kilograms. I'm a big fan of polys for their lower power and spin-friendly characteristics, and Polytour Pro is a common pair with the EZONE 98, in part because it's a recommended string from Yonex, but mainly because it's endorsed by Kyrios. It's a low-powered tennis string that offers excellent control, durability, and solid tension maintenance for a poly, so it's a reasonable starting point to get a feel for the racket. Now that you know exactly what to expect from the Yonex EZONE 98 specs and technologies, let's jump into my playtest and review. Before we jump in, here are a few playtest notes that you might find useful when considering my thoughts and opinions on this racket. On Groundstrokes, the EZONE 98 is a fun frame to hit with, which swings easily for generating higher levels of racket head speed and translates to great topspin. It won't provide the highest level of spin, but I think it finds a middle ground that's well suited for players with traditional grips that like to hit flat and through the ball, while also appealing to those with modern grips who play with a lot of topspin. One of my favorite parts about the racket on Groundstrokes is its power to control ratio. Its 98 square inch head and mid-range RA rating combined with a stiffer poly offer excellent control, but when you need that extra pace, the racket responds incredibly well. As for feel, the frame rides a fine line between moderate comfort and useful feedback that can translate to a more connected feel, so it's not surprising many players report opposing thoughts on this front. I wouldn't expect most players to experience arm issues, but string selection and tension will undoubtedly play a role, so it warrants thoughtful consideration. Up at net, I found the EZONE 98 to be precise, without giving up too much of that lively response to redirect pace for a penetrating volley. At 6 points head light when strung, it's highly maneuverable, but I did find that it translated to a bit of instability at times. On the plus side, the lack of stability was offset to a small degree by the frame's sizable sweet spot, which I found to be somewhat forgiving when striking the ball off-center. Overall, the racket is a solid performer at net, which works well as is, but is also well suited for a small bit of weight customization to improve stability. On serve, I found the EZONE 98 to deliver a solid all-around performance. It swings fast and packs plenty of power when needed, but it's not overbearing, so you can still pick your spots and serve with accuracy. I would have loved a bit more action on my kick serve, but it's plenty sufficient and on par with what I'd expect for the head size and string pattern. All in all, I felt right at home serving with this racket. Its response was predictable, which helped enhance my confidence in my approach. Finally, on returns, I found the EZONE 98 to handle exceptionally well. Once again, its headlight balance makes it a breeze to maneuver, and I enjoyed the frame's precision, especially when combined with an abbreviated stroke. For its weight, I felt it offered respectable stability on returns, where there's a bit of momentum behind the racket. But there's definitely a downside here for players facing bigger serves. Of course, that can be addressed with some minor customization. The best way I can sum up the Yonex EZONE 98 is well balanced. It didn't wow me in any particular area, but that's arguably what makes it unique. Often, you'll find rackets leaning heavily in one direction to offer maximum spin, power, or comfort, for example, which means you'll typically give up something in another area. However, the EZONE 98 delivers a steady performance across the board, so it's a racket that will adapt well to a wide range of player styles and works great for all-court play. Ultimately, I think this racket is perfectly well suited for intermediate players. I'd expect more advanced players to gravitate towards the tour model, but if you don't mind customizing your racket, then this frame is a nice canvas for dialing in your ideal spec. For many, the DR generation of the EZONE was a favorite, and it remains a measuring stick for comparing new models, so let's do a quick comparison. As you can see, there's a bit of variation. The new frame is a tad lighter by 6 grams, but it maintains a 6-point headlight strung balance, translating to a 7-point decrease in swing weight. It also gets a slight tweak to the beam thickness around the throat and has a bit of added stiffness by 2 points. On paper, they're not too far off, but I do find the latest generation to swing a bit easier and offer a slightly more lively response, which translates to a small bump in power and overall a bit less stability. With that said, I'd expect most players who are fans of the DR to gravitate to the tour model, but it does feel different, so as always I'd encourage you to demo it first. If you'd like to learn more about the Yonex EZONE 98, be sure to check out my full write-up, which I've linked in the video's description. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. And if you'd like to join me for future videos, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.